it absolutely, according to them, is one of their top three projects that they have in their exploration portfolio. So it's a very exciting project. As listeners will know, viewers will know, we're surrounded by majors again here in the northwest, both First Quantum and Barrick. So I'm very confident that over time we will find something very significant there, as is Anglo.
Hello, you're watching Proactive. Joining me in the studio today are Nick von Schirnding. He's the Executive Chairman, and also Vassilios Carellas. He's Chief Operating Officer at ARC Minerals. Great to have you both in the studio today.
Thanks.
Thanks. Good morning.
So you are out with news today. Before we delve into that, Nick, can you remind us about ARC Minerals and what you do?
Yes, ARC Minerals is a exploration company. We're developing hopefully a number of tier one projects into what we hope will be very significant copper operations going forward, both in Botswana and in Zambia.
And of course, the news today pertains to another tier one copper project that you are targeting. You've acquired the Chingola project in Zambia. Tell us more about the project.
Yes, this project is located in the northeast of the Copper Belt in Zambia, and that's important for a number of reasons. It has much higher grades than in the northwest, where we have the Anglo-American joint venture, and houses what have traditionally been Zambia's largest copper operations. And very close to us is the Nchanga operating mine, which today is run by Vedanta. That I think is certainly the largest open cast mine in Zambia, and I think the second largest in the world. That's less than 30 kilometers away from us. There's also Mimbula, which is even closer. That's an operation run by Moxico, and that is smaller, but it produces, I think, somewhere between 10 and 30,000 tons of copper a year. So we're surrounded by very successful operating mines. We've been after this asset for circa 18 months, like we said in the press release. Why? Because we've identified this as a strategic asset. It's got very, very high prospectivity, as I say, surrounded by traditionally high grade operations and big mines around us. So there's everything to play for there.
So a very competitive environment, 18 months in the making for this Vasily. Tell us about the prospects you're seeing there and the terms of the deal.
Yeah, look, 18 months, it's been a long road. We identified this ground as very potential, it's got lots of potential, given that it's a long trend from the mines, as Nick has mentioned. So geologically, it's got all the right facets for making a discovery. In terms of the deal itself, we've got the 50,000 payment that we've made on signing the SPA, and then the $25,000 payment once the conditional, or the share payment once all the conditions have been met, and there's some other things that need to get done to close the deal. And then after that, there's further milestone payments on drilling, on getting a resource. I think it's quite a neatly structured deal. It's not onerous in any way whatsoever.
I think sorry to interrupt, but I think that one of the key points is, that 75,000 in effect that we're paying up front, over the 2-year period until hopefully we start drilling. But in a worst case scenario, if we don't find anything, that's our maximum exposure and we can walk away. But going back to Vasily identified this terrain some 2 years ago actually, and we then started analyzing and doing some further work in it, and it's taken 18 months post that to actually close the deal. So it went away from us for a while. So we thought we had lost it, and we stuck in there. We made contact with the new owners. It's a new license, which is very advantageous for us. And as I think our shareholders know, we've always said we're going to be strategic and we're also going to be patient, and we were patient, and we've got this asset. I should also add that we know that at least one major was bidding for this asset. And we managed to see them off. So it's very fertile terrain and in demand by other competitors. So it's an excellent asset for us, excellent acquisition. it really builds out our portfolio as well. So, we started obviously acquiring what is now subject of the joint venture with Anglo in the northwest. We then acquired, some very, very interesting property in Botswana. We've again had an approach there already by a major to see whether we could do something that would work with them. And now this is the third acquisition we've made in the northeast of Zambia this time. So, we are developing a very, very high profile, high quality portfolio of copper assets in both Zambia and Botswana. So I'm extremely pleased. I think this is one of the most consequential acquisitions we've made since the Anglo joint venture. So it's a great day for us.
Has there been any previous work done at Chingola, Vasily?
Well, this license is sitting, as I said, a long trend from existing operations. In terms of the historical work, we don't really have that information. We know that there has been some work in the past, and we are in the process now of sort of trying to identify who was in this area. But it doesn't look like anyone has done anything on it in the last sort of 20 years. So in terms of new exploration techniques and all that, nothing's really been applied to this ground. So from that perspective, it actually makes it even more perspective because, there's new ideas, new thoughts about how these things are formed. And, to start off with, you need the geology, and we've got the geology. 90% of the ground is sitting with prospective geology. So it's a good one.
So sorry, Nick?
No, I was just going to add, we're going to get going very, very rapidly with the early geological work. Vasily can touch on that. Critically, it's fully funded, because I know shareholders immediately say, oh, there's a raise on the way. There's not. So we absolutely will do this ourselves. We've got the cash resources to do that. It'll be a few $100,000 over the next few months. So, that's big box ticked for us. And, I think very helpfully, this gives us another bow to our string, a string to our bow, I should say, with news flow, because, there will be news flow as we do the soil sampling and then the assays from the soil sampling over the next few months. But you might want to touch on that.
Yeah, look, we're busy working on that at the moment. It looks like we're probably looking at a 2 to 3 month soil sampling program, as Nick said. That is all already, doesn't require any additional funding. We've got the resources to do that. And then that'll be followed up with potentially some geophysics. Before then we can start drilling. So, certainly a busy couple of months post-signing now that we've also got the rainy season has come to an end, which makes it a lot easier to get out there and do the work. And this is also part of the Copper Belt where the infrastructure is in place and you can do a lot more work into the rainy season versus up in the northwest where there are challenges operating during those periods.
With the rainy season coming to an end, Nick, does that mean you can proceed with the Anglo joint venture and proceed to drilling there?
Yes, absolutely. So there's been a lot of work being done by Anglo principally, but including us over the rainy season over the past few months. As Vasily says, that's coming to an end now. And so we're finalising those plans with Anglo. Vasily sits on the technical committee of the joint venture. I sit on the joint venture board. Vasily's been up there last month. You might want to touch on that because they're mobilising. Yeah,
look, they've already mobilised into the camp. So they've already got, I think, a couple of geologists and a team of sort of locals there getting things ready. I met up with them when I was last in February. So we're meeting up again shortly to finalise things. So it's full steam ahead, sun is shining, and hopefully drills turning shortly.
And I've put a lot of pressure on Vasily to, tell Anglo we've got to get going quickly. We didn't get going early last year partly because of the unsolicited bid that came through. So that slowed everything down. So we really want to get going, hopefully with a number of rigs, and the pressure's on. And they seem very keen. It absolutely, according to them, is one of their top 3 projects that they have in their exploration portfolio. So it's a very exciting project. As listeners will know, viewers will know, we're surrounded by majors again here in the northwest, both First Quantum and Barrick. So, I'm very confident that over time we will find something very significant there, as is Anglo.
Nick, today's announcement also mentions the award of options to management. Could you explain that?
Yes, so for the last 5 years, we haven't issued any options or any awards of shares to any of the management or board. And I think the board felt it was time now that we did need to issue a slug of options and shares to the management to ensure that the management and board are aligned with shareholders' interests. This is completely, common. And so we've done I think, total potential exposure there of 5%. So it's modest, and there are all kinds of hurdles and criteria that we have to fulfill, again in line with the interests of all our shareholders, before any of those are actually awarded to us. But it's a long overdue award that, as I say, we haven't done anything for 5 years or so.
So what next then, Nick? What should investors be watching out for?
Well, look, I think we get going, in Zambia principally, both with the joint venture, and that drilling will kick off quite soon. And then, of course, all the geological work that we're going to get going with now over the next few weeks in the northeast with the new project. So post that, it'll be, I guess, 2 to 3 months of work, and then the assays after that. So we'll be updating, and hopefully with more interviews like this as to how it's going, what we're seeing on the ground in Chingola. So there'll be accelerated news flow there.
Well, gents, I hope you'll keep us posted on progress on all of those fronts. Thank you very much for coming into the studio today.
Thanks.
That's Nick von Schirnding, the Executive Chairman, and Vassilios Carellas. He's the Chief Operating Officer at ARC Minerals.